Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom.
It's our News Watch unit. We've got two stories for you today. The first one's about South Sudan. They've got a blind league that they've put together, and it's helping inspire hope and unity in that particular nation. If you're blind, of course, you can't see. So to have a blind league playing sports sounds impossible, doesn't it? We're going to find out how they do it. What's the second story, Tom?
The second story is about cloning. When we make copies of animals or even people, this has been a topic of interest to people for many years. And of course, we go back to Dolly the lamb or the sheep back in Scotland. Gee, that was about 30 or 40 years ago. But we're talking about a cloned ferret in the U.S. because it's going extinct, so they're figuring out a way to clone it so that it can keep on existing in the world.
Before we get started, guys, you're going to listen to us read these two stories out loud. Stay tuned.
South Sudan's Blind League inspires hope and unity. In South Sudan, the nation's first blind Premier League is improving the lives of people with disabilities through inclusive sports. Teams of 5 compete using a ball with bells, with completely blind outfield players guided by sound. The goalkeeper can be sighted or partially blind and provides verbal directions to teammates. The league is supported by Light for the World, a nonprofit that promotes disability inclusion and eye health in Africa. Light for the World not only supports the sport, but also creates opportunities for people with disabilities. Years of civil war in South Sudan have forced millions to move, and the country's underdevelopment has also led to widespread negative attitudes toward people with disabilities. However, the league serves as a light of hope. It offers participants a chance to build friendships and find support through shared activities. Though just over a year old, the league has ambitious goals. It aims to incorporate teams from every South Sudanese state and prepare the country for the 2026 Blind Football African Championship, with hopes of participating in the 2028 Paralympic Games.
Cloning restores genetic diversity to endangered ferrets. In a landmark achievement for conservation, a cloned black-footed ferret in the U.S. has given birth to healthy offspring for the first time. Native to North America, black-footed ferrets are among the world's most endangered mammals, largely due to habitat loss and the decline of their main prey. By the 1980s, they were considered extinct in the wild, with only 7 individuals producing young through captive breeding programs. This limited founding population creates challenges, as low genetic diversity increases inbreeding, reduces breeding success, and raises mortality rates. To address this crisis, scientists use genetic material from Willa, a black-footed ferret that never bred. Her genes, preserved in 1988, hold 3 times the diversity of the current population. In 2023, through somatic cell nuclear transfer, researchers created Willa's clone, Antonia. After maturing, Antonia mated with a male black-footed ferret and gave birth to 3 kits last year. Although one didn't survive, the other 2 have achieved key developmental milestones. Antonia's success in reintroducing Willa's genetic diversity demonstrates cloning's potential in conservation and offers hope to endangered species globally.
Okay, everybody, it's time for us to talk about the contents of today's lesson. Again, it's our News Watch unit for May. It's also our all-English unit, so no Chinese teacher today. I'll have to resist the temptation to give you translations of certain terms. It's easier that way, but oh, no. I am not permitted to speak any Chinese. And we've got a couple of stories to talk about today. Something going on in South Sudan about a blind league. I guess they're soccer players, football, depending on where you are. But they are blind. They can't see. How can people play soccer if they can't see?
You got me. That's a good question. We often use this word league, which is a vocabulary term, to talk about a collection of people or groups or countries, and they're combined for a particular purpose. Here we're talking about, of course, a sports league, like Major League Basketball or Major League Baseball, National Basketball League, I think NBA, National Basketball League, Major League Baseball, the League of Nations, which preceded the UN long, long ago. So it is a group of people who come together for a particular purpose. So let's talk about this particular league, which is a blind league. What are they doing?
They're playing soccer, I guess, and this is happening in South Sudan. And in South Sudan, the nation's first blind Premier League is improving the lives of people with disabilities through inclusive sports. Okay, again, this is taking place in South Sudan, which is a country that is south of Sudan, which, of course, is a very large country in Africa. South Sudan is south of Sudan, and then Sudan itself is south of Egypt. But again, the point is that in this country of South Sudan, we've got a league of blind players. They're playing in the Blind Premier League, I guess BPL for short. And, of course, if you have disabilities, that means you're not like normal people. Maybe you can't see, maybe you can't walk. You have just some sort of a problem that other people don't have. And we're talking about inclusive sports, sports that can include people. They won't be excluded or kept away.
Typically, sports to me are very exclusive or very particular about who can play a particular game. You usually have to have really good skills and be athletic to be on a sports team, as you know. They usually have auditions or where you try out. I guess it's not auditions. That's more for musicals and dramas and stuff. But you have tryouts for sports teams starting at least in elementary school. I know we had some tryouts for different teams. They're more inclusive when they're younger kids. And then as you get older, it becomes more exclusive. You can't get in or onto a team unless you have really top-notch skills. So they're trying to improve life for people with disabilities, limitations. They can't do things that normal people usually can. They're limited. And so they're trying to help this particular group of people feel included, and especially through sports. So we've got teams of 5 who compete using a ball with bells. This is with completely blind outfield players guided by sound. So this is how they do it. It's really fascinating.
Normally in soccer, they have, 10 or 11 players on a team. So this is smaller, probably on a smaller field, a smaller pitch as well. And again, it's a ball with bells, sort of like those balls you let your cat play with or your dog play with. They knock it around and it makes a sound. A similar concept. And again, they use this ball that has bells so that they can see it. And then we've got outfield players. They are guided by sound. If you're in the outfield, well, you're in the field, as opposed to the goalkeeper who sticks close to the goal to stop the shots from going in.
Yeah, I can relate this to baseball for those of you who like baseball. Outfield, we've got center, right field, left field, and then you've got infield players who are playing first base, second base, third base. Well, these folks, these completely blind outfield players are way out there on the pitch, as we call the field where you play soccer, and they're guided by sound. I've read, and we've all heard, I think, that blind people are compensated with really good hearing, much better hearing than most of us have. Kind of helps them get around in life more easily. So they're guided by sound. Remember, the ball that they're playing with has bells on it. Now, what does the goalkeeper do, Tom?
They stop the shots from going in, and of course, they can use their hands, whereas other players cannot use their hands. They have to use their feet only or their knees or whatever. I think they can use their head and their shoulders, but they can't use their arms or their hands, rather. So yes, indeed, the goalkeeper can be sighted, which means they can see, or they can be partially blind, not 100% blind, but partially they can see some things. And the goalkeeper provides verbal directions to teammates. If something's verbal, it is spoken. So the goalkeeper will say, hey, the ball's over there on the left, run straight and you'll get to it. Well, please kick it over there to that player. He's waiting for a pass, etc. that's what the goalkeeper can do.
We often use this word verbal in business. A verbal agreement is an agreement where you just spoke with one another and you kind of shook hands on it. You didn't sign anything. There's no contract. We have a verbal agreement.
Kind of the honor system, right?
Yeah, and you hope that people are, true to their word, that they keep their commitments that they make verbally to you. You need to know who you can trust in business to go ahead and start producing something based on a verbal agreement. So they've got the goalkeeper who can be sighted or partially blind, and he provides those verbal directions to teammates. Maybe he says, farther left or go back or come forward. I have no idea what they're saying when they're playing soccer. But the league is supported by a group called Light for the World. It's a nonprofit that promotes disability inclusion and eye health in Africa. So they were created for this very purpose. Nonprofit just means they take all the money they make as profit and they put it back into the business. And they're trying to do something usually that is considered to be a charitable cause.
Indeed. So here we've got the word inclusion. That's when you are included. You can join in activities. You don't have to be excluded. You don't have to be an outsider. And yes, they want to promote eye health in Africa. They want people in Africa to have better vision. And Light for the World not only supports the sport, but also creates opportunities for people with disabilities. So again, they support the sport. They support the Premier League for blind people, but they also want to create other opportunities for people, maybe like jobs or something like that, or opportunities to be educated, to go to university or whatever. These are people with disabilities who would probably normally not have those opportunities because people would say, well, how can you work in an office because you can't see? You'd have to use a Braille computer keyboard or something like that. So we need people who can react quickly to the market and things like that. But hopefully this group will help people find appropriate jobs.
There is a problem with eye health in Africa. I read about something called the river blindness. River blindness happens in particular areas in Africa, and they discovered a medicine that can really cure this, which has just been a real advancement, I think, in Africa. It's called hydrochloroquine, and these little pills that they take like once a week or once every couple weeks prevents the people in the area with bad water to get this river blindness, actually going blind because of the problems with the water there. So they do a lot of good, and like Tom said, they support the sport, but they're also looking to create opportunities for people with disabilities. Sometimes you just need really clever people thinking about different ways that people with disabilities can improve society, can make a difference, and feel like they're really needed in this world.
Yep, they won't feel like they're a sore thumb or something like that. They'll feel a part of society. Good for them. And here in the next paragraph it says, years of civil war in South Sudan have forced millions to move, and the country's underdevelopment has also led to widespread negative attitudes toward people with disabilities. So they've got some problems there in South Sudan. They've had a civil war going on for a very long time. And of course, that causes problems. And we have refugees, and they have to move around. And also, the country is underdeveloped. So underdevelopment means when you don't have all the facilities that modern countries have, like Taiwan, Japan, the U.S., Europe, etc. They're all developed countries. Whereas other countries, mostly in Africa, maybe South America or whatever, they are underdeveloped. And because of this, they have widespread negative attitudes toward people with disabilities. Yeah, we've got problems here. We've got refugees. We've got war going on. We don't have time to take care of blind people. They are a burden.
That's sometimes the attitude when you're talking about a country where there are really big financial problems. And if it's underdeveloped, like Tom said, they just don't have the facilities or the things they need to continue to grow and become more like a first world country or a second world country. Maybe this is a third world country, meaning they just aren't as progressive and advanced as other countries around the world who have a lot more money. And when you have money, you can invest in new things and new technologies and infrastructure that helps the people. So, of course, when there's not enough money, the first thing people will do is complain or have negative attitudes towards those who seem to need more help. So this is what has happened there. There's widespread negative attitudes toward people with disabilities in South Sudan.
Well, however, here it says, the league serves as a light of hope. They're giving people hope that they can participate and that they can be included in society. It offers participants a chance to build friendships and find support through shared activities. So yeah, that's the best way to get people to support each other. Get them together, get them to participate in various activities. These are shared activities like playing football, but it could involve other things as well. They want these people to feel like they're normal, that they are a part of society.
Yeah, you don't have negative attitudes towards people that you've come to know personally. You don't look at them as one big, large group. You see them as unique individuals, and so it makes that negative attitude change. So it's a good idea to bring these people together, and it offers these participants, as Tom said, a chance to build friendships with people they might not otherwise have had a chance to get to know. So though it's just over a year old, the league has really ambitious goals. When you talk about ambitious goals, you're talking about goals that people set that are hard to achieve. They're kind of high. So someone has to have a very strong desire and determination to succeed. If they have those ambitious goals, and they do here in the league, what do they want to do? Well, it says they aim to incorporate teams from every South Sudanese state and prepare the country for the 2026 Blind Football African Championships. So they're really trying to get organized and get their South Sudanese state ready to participate in a pretty big championship, actually. It takes place in 2026, and it's going to include all the blind African players in that particular year. A championship is when you have a series of rounds where teams play against each other, and the winner of one match or round goes on to play the next winner of another round. And eventually you come up with a champion, and they are crowned the champions of that particular championship, whatever you're talking about. So it sounds like they've got some great plans, and they're really busy trying to get ready.
This also implies that there are other blind soccer players in other parts of Africa, maybe in Mali or Cameroon or Niger or wherever. So they'll all participate in this championship, and they want to participate in the 2028 Paralympic Games. Those usually occur after the regular Olympics. Where are the Olympics going to be in 2028?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to find out later and tell you, but right now we're at the end of the first part of our lesson. Let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Just in case you wanted to know, the Olympics in 2028 are going to be in L.A., Los Angeles, California, USA. Now, here's our next story for you today. We're talking about cloning, which basically is talking about copying people, copying living things, cloning. And cloning restores genetic diversity to endangered ferrets. Okay, a ferret, that's kind of an animal. It's kind of like a cat, maybe kind of like a dog. It's kind of small, and they like to kill rabbits. They like to hunt rabbits. And, of course, there are many different species of ferrets. In this particular case, we've got a ferret called the black-footed ferret, which I guess is endangered.
They remind me of really big rats, just very long bodies. I think they look really mean. I've been around a ferret, and they've got really mean teeth. I wouldn't want to be attacked by a ferret. But yeah, some people consider them to be pets. I'm not sure why. We're going to talk about why people have ferrets sometimes.
I think I saw a pet store in Taidong actually selling ferrets to be pets. My sister had a pet ferret once, but she said never again. They're just not suitable to be pets.
No, and one animal that has to watch out for the ferret is the rabbit. We'll talk about that later. So they're cloning things. They're making it an exact copy of a human or an animal by using their DNA. And it's a very scientific process that happens. We started long ago with the sheep called Dolly. This happened decades ago. So they've been working on it since then. Some of it's been legal. Some of it has been illegal, has gone underground, where I know that they're performing experiments combining human DNA with animal DNA, which is illegal, but they're doing it anyway because that's our world. So we're going to talk about how this cloning is supposed to restore or bring back genetic diversity to these endangered ferrets. What does it mean if you're endangered, Tom?
It means you're in trouble in terms of your conservation status. There are different levels of conservation status. Like some animals, like sparrows or pigeons, are least concern. They aren't in any trouble. And then at the other end of the spectrum is extinct. It no longer exists. It's gone. They've all been killed off. So if you're endangered, you're kind of toward the bad part of the spectrum there. So yeah, you are having some problems. And if something is not done, you might eventually go extinct. So that's what endangered means. So yes, indeed, we're talking about endangered ferrets in the USA. Okay, and in a landmark achievement for conservation, a cloned black-footed ferret in the U.S. has given birth to healthy offspring for the first time. Your offspring, of course, are your children, and this particular ferret actually gave birth to these baby ferrets, and so I guess that means that the cloning was successful, but we'll have to wait and see how the kits or the baby ferrets grow up.
Yeah, that's what we call those baby ferrets, is kits, and you'll see it later on in this particular news story. They're native to North America. That's where they started. That's where they came from. And the one we're talking about is black-footed. It's a black-footed ferret. And this black-footed ferret is among the world's most endangered mammals. We've got lots of mammals that are endangered. The numbers are decreasing as time goes on. We want to make sure that we keep them around. We need them. A mammal is a type of animal that gives live birth to her offspring. Usually a mammal has hair or fur on their body, and they also will feed their babies with milk that the mother produces. Those are all the qualifications or the characteristics of a mammal. They've largely gotten on this list of endangered mammals because of habitat loss. When you lose your habitat, it means you're losing your home. Maybe too many people are moving into the area. There's too much construction. They're losing their natural habitat. And this has also happened. Well, the decline of the ferret is also due to the decline of their main prey. I think their main prey happens to be rabbits.
Sounds right.
Yeah, those poor little rabbits. I was reading online earlier, and someone was asking if ferrets are cuddly, meaning you want to, just put your arms around them and hold them like you do your kitty cats and stuff. But ferrets are really hyperactive. They're constantly moving, especially when they're young or if they're female, and they like to interact with people, but they really need a lot of attention. They're very high-maintenance pets, if you get one.
Okay, so there you know about ferrets there. Again, they are quite active, and they do attack rabbits. So, of course, the numbers are declining because of habitat loss and because they don't have enough prey, enough animals to hunt. And a mammal, of course, is an animal that produces live young, not through eggs, and the mothers feed milk to their young. And by the 1980s, they were considered extinct in the wild. Okay, so that's another level of conservation status. Extinct is the worst one, and then before that is extinct in the wild, which means they still exist in zoos or as pets or things like that. But you won't find them in forests or mountains anymore because they're gone from those areas. And there are only 7 individuals producing young through captive breeding programs. Now, if you're captive, of course, you're kept in one place. You cannot run wild. And breeding just refers to when they get boys and girls together to make babies.
That's right. Now, we usually don't talk about men and women getting together as the process of breeding. We just don't talk about it like that. We talk about breeding when we're talking about animals. And we've got professional breeders who put different types or species of dogs or cats together to produce something that people will like or enjoy. You know, I went home a couple months ago, and everyone seems to have this particular dog called the poodle. It's called a labrapoodle or something like that.
Ugh.
So it's a Labrador that's mixed with a poodle. Oh, I don't know why. They're very hyper. They can't hold still. And, you know, like poodles, they make a lot of noise. But that seems to be a new type of dog, a new breed that breeders came up with. Remember, we don't usually talk about breeding when we're talking about human beings. We refer to that as something else. But breeding here is when animals get together and have babies. So this limited founding population creates challenges. There's very low genetic diversity between them. And so this increases something called inbreeding. If you ever see this word inbreeding and we're talking about humans, it means that close relatives are getting together and getting married and having kids.
Like cousins.
But yeah, first cousins, but it usually leads to a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems when you have a lot of inbreeding. Look at the royal family back in a couple of decades ago, even centuries ago. You can see that there was too much inbreeding. They wanted to only breed with other royals. But then you run out of genes, right? You only have certain genes that are breeding together. It gets kind of creepy, and they get a lot of mental illness and physical problems as well.
Right, so that would be an example of low genetic diversity.
Yeah.
And if you have a larger population and people can pick and choose mates from other families and other countries, well, the genetic diversity increases, and then you have better breeding opportunities. If you have low genetic diversity, then you have a lot of inbreeding, and then breeding success will be lower and lower, and it will raise or increase mortality rates.
Yeah.
Mortality just refers to dying rates of death, how many of them will actually die. And if you're trying to improve the numbers of a particular near extinct animal, you don't want that. You don't want them to die. You want them to survive.
So we're setting out the problem here. This is the crisis we just finished talking about. So what are we going to do? Well, scientists used genetic material from Willa. Willa was the name of a ferret, a black-footed ferret, that had never bred while Willa was alive. Willa is gone. They kept the genetic material from Willa after she passed away. Her genes were preserved way back in 1988. And because her genes came from such a long time ago, there was a lot of diversity to her genes. 3 times the diversity of the current population of black-footed ferrets.
Right, so genes, of course, you know that word in Chinese. I am forbidden to say the Chinese, but I think you know what it means. And those genes were preserved in 1988, probably frozen or something like that. And, of course, those genes hold 3 times the diversity of the current population. So that's good news for these black-footed ferrets. And in 2023, just a couple of years ago, through somatic cell nuclear transfer, researchers created Willa's clone, Antonia. So again, this happened a couple of years ago, and this is a very scientific process here, somatic cell nuclear transfer. Now, I know somatic has to do with the body. When I was taking psychology in high school, of course, we had to learn the word soma, which refers to the body as opposed to the mind. So you need to know the difference there if you're talking about psychology and the body and things like that. So somatic means having to do with the body. And then we have nuclear transfer. My goodness, are they using a nuclear reactor here? Are they splitting atoms to make this process work?
A somatic cell, if you look it up, is any cell of the body except for sperm and egg cells. So it's kind of a general or genetic cell. So you've got this somatic cell nuclear transfer, or in other words, cloning. That's what that means. And the researchers created Willa's clone through this process of cloning. After maturing, after growing up, Antonia mated with a male black-footed ferret, and they gave birth to Antonio's the one who gave birth to 3 kits last year. Again, we call baby ferrets kits, like we call puppies or baby dogs, right? Or kitties or kitty cats or baby cats. We call baby ferrets kits. I don't know if you'll ever need that knowledge in the future, but now you know.
In case you enter science or something like that, so again, this is a process that involves the nucleus of these cells. And although one didn't survive, one did not keep on living, the other 2 have achieved key developmental milestones. Developmental, that's a long word. It has to do with your development. So just divide this into 2 words, developmental milestones.
Good.
So yes, indeed, they've continued living, and of course, they've shown us that this is possible.
So Antonia's success in reintroducing Willis genetic diversity demonstrates cloning's potential in conservation. This is how they think they might be able to keep genetic diversity going on in the future by this process of cloning, and it offers hope to endangered species globally. That's what the scientists say, at least. But you need to keep your eye on this process, guys. They're doing some really creepy things illegally, so that's something you might want to look into. Right now, though, we're out of time, Tom. We got to say goodbye. There's no Chinese teacher, but we're sure glad you joined us. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.